I believe it should be recording. And we have one parent in so far.
Oh, wow. Okay. So wait, sorry, you'll monitor this and like
Yeah.
answer things as you're able, and then I guess if it's a question that you wouldn't be able to answer, but I could, then you'll just
Mhm.
um I mean, I'll keep it open so that way I can like kind of address things as we go, I guess.
Yeah, if you want also at the end, like any questions, like I can read them out and you can answer them,
Okay.
whichever you find easiest. And then whenever you're ready to start, we can wait a minute now. And I
Yeah,
can
let's wait a minute and see.
introduction.
That'll be ready. Let me just make sure I can. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I guess I'll just do this now. You can see that, right? My
Yeah.
screen? Okay, cool. Yeah, that way it's just up there and wait.
Okay. If we want to get started, hello and welcome to our summer orientation series for families, which we will include sessions each Wednesday at noon throughout the summer with recordings posted to our webpage for your convenience. Our summer series touches on a wide variety of topics, all of which we hope to help you help your students thrive through their transition to Dickinson and throughout their experience. The Q&A option is available for this webinar, so please do not hesitate to ask any questions. We will save time at the end of the presentation to make sure all those questions are answered. My name is Megan. I will be this session's moderator. I am a rising junior at Dickinson, and I'm currently serving as Student Orientation Director. And the title of today's session is Helping Students Soar to Academic Success with John Joyce, the Associate Director of SOAR. So whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, so my name is John. I'm the Associate Director of what is a dual office here, Access and Disability Services, ADS, and SOAR, which stands for Strategies, Organization, and Achievement Resources. Um, so we have the kind of same physical space. We share personnel, but we have different areas of focus, our two offices. The ADS office, we facilitate disability-based accommodations for students, as well as supports for temporary impairments, such as a student who maybe breaks a bone or has a concussion. Um, and we can help them with supports that mostly academic, though not exclusively academic supports on their way to recovery. For those students who have disabilities, we would be ensuring that they have full access to Dickinson on a non-discriminatory basis. Again, we mostly work with academic accommodations, but for some students, they have accommodations in the areas of dietary needs, housing needs, or mobility needs. In this session, though, we'll focus on our other office, SOAR, Strategies, Organization, and Achievement Resources. We may not take the whole time. I really want to just give an overview of what resources are available on our website, talk a little bit about the resource center that we have here on campus in Old West, um, and highlight how students can go about scheduling time management sessions. For that first aspect, the website resources, that's something that would best be explored kind of when you have time. We have a lot of resources on there. For the other two, those are things that Dickinson students would make use of. So I'm really highlighting them so that you can communicate those with your child who's attending Dickinson. Um, and maybe either just bring awareness about those resources and how they're available, or if they already know about them, there's something that you might be able to ask about during the course of the semester. Hey, have you checked in with SOAR? Have you done the time management session? I'll highlight a couple tools that we generally work with students on that will help them manage their time and stay organized, and also some other academic resources on campus that are not part of our office, but you may already be familiar with, but can support students um, throughout their academic journey. Okay. At the end of the session, if there are any questions, I'm happy to um, kind of address them then, or you can use the Q&A feature and type them in as we go. So again, strategies, organization, and achievement resources is SOAR. We support Dickinson students, all students, whether they work with our ADS office or not, who have an interest in developing um, either better strategies for their academics, practicing better time management, improving their study skills. On the right-hand side of this page, you see a screenshot of our website. And when you go to dickinson.edu/SOAR, SOAR, you'll see this landing page that is divided into different topics, basically. Within each topic is different resources that students can avail themselves of, whether those be for example, the first one, time management and organization, a document that has tips for time management. They may be apps or different tools that students can access, or there might be information about other locations on campus that can help them in that area, right? So we have a few different areas here: time management, study strategies, note taking, memory strategies at the very bottom, test taking. Um, so we're really interested in supporting students in whatever it is they think that they could use some support with, right? We provide in-person support for students primarily in the form of one-on-one time management sessions. We call them time management sessions. They're not strictly about time management, although often for incoming students, that is the focus, right? The focus is, how do I go from a structured high school schedule where basically I was in school from, let's say, 7 or 8 a.m. until, say, 3 p.m., and maybe I had activities or work or sports after, and then I did my homework and then I went to bed. And the schedule was, for the most part, pretty rigid. And now at a college environment where they have some, like their classes are on different days. They may have a class every day, but most classes are going to be some, but not every day during the week. And so each day is going to have its own kind of unique rhythm to it and a lot of unstructured time, right? So what is common for a lot of students is that they may have a couple days a week where they only have one class that day, right? And that class might be 1 hour long or an hour and 15 minutes. And what they do with the rest of their time is going to be entirely up to them. So often what we meet with students about is how they can kind of start to make a structure that would work for them. So some of the things that we'll do to assist them in that is look through their syllabi, look through their Moodle pages, talk about how it is that they take notes, how do they study outside of class, where do they study, and start to come up with some semblance of a plan for how they can create that structure for themselves. We generally do these in single meetings, and then we offer students to follow up with us a few weeks later to check in and see how are some of these strategies, or how is this structure working for you? What kind of tweaks do we need to make? We don't currently have the capacity to meet with students, to meet with a singular student on a weekly basis every week throughout the semester, right? Maybe sometime down the line that will be the case, but really what we're trying to do is set them up with a foundation from which they can kind of progress. And again, we'll meet with them. We might meet with them a second time if they would like to, and we'll go from there. This says TBD for fall 2024. It should say 2025, the academic success workshops. We do periodically offer those. It It depends on a variety of factors. We don't currently have any planned. Um, but to be honest, in July, we're not thinking a whole lot about the fall schedule yet. We're still in the thick of summertime and setting students up for the fall, right? And so come the fall semester, we generally kind of see what kind of demand there is for time management sessions, or if we're hearing a lot of questions about other topics. Um, and then we'll provide workshops, usually in the evenings or sometimes during what's called common hour on Tuesdays or Thursdays, um, on different topics that students can attend. Okay. We are physically located in what's called the Owl, that's Old West lower level. So this is the building with the mermaid on top and with the stairs that students will go up during convocation to sign into the college and walk down during commencement. Our lower level is kind of like half underground, half above ground. And so it's accessible on either side of the building. And in the lower level, we have what we call our resource hall. So there are some images here that show a couple examples of the resources that are provided, but what you hopefully get a sense of overall is that we have a lot. We probably have 50 different kinds of handouts in the hallway on a whole variety of topics. Um, it's not the case that every single handout would be useful to a given student, but they're on a wide range of things. Guidance, as you can see in the image here, specifically for individuals with ADHD. We also, though, have handouts that one of which I'll get into later, which is just a calendar for planning your weeks and for planning your semester. Um, there are there are tips on preparing for tests, tips on meeting with professors during office hours, tips on taking notes in class, guides on some built-in assistive technology tools in both Apple and Windows that might be able to help you um, stay organized or just be more efficient, right? So there's a whole variety of things there. When I meet with students, often say, check out what's there, grab one or two handouts that you think might be useful and try to identify one or two specific small things that you can do. It would be really overwhelming to try to do everything that's there, but doable to pick one or two things as a next step, right? These are two of the resources that are available there that are our most widely used resource at the beginning of the semester. We see students throughout the day that first week coming in to get our weekly planner and our semester calendar. The semester calendar um, it is either single-sided or double-sided, but it is a calendar for the whole semester, and it may be difficult to see, but on specific important dates, we've labeled what those dates are. So we've labeled when classes begin, what's the last day to add and drop classes, what's the last day to change your language level, your level in a language course, when does midterm when does fall pause start? When are midterms? When is finals week? What's the last day of class? We have those built into that schedule. And the idea is that students would take this and be able to, they can do a number of things, but typically what students will do is use it to put in when their tests are and when their due dates are, right? So it's something that when we meet with students one-on-one, we would sit down with their syllabi and fill out that semester calendar with what are those important due dates. They will already know from their syllabus that they have a paper due, let's say on October 17th, right? And so we can write that in there. And if it would be useful to the student, what we can also think about is how can we also write in some other days so that on October 17th, you are indeed ready to turn in the essay rather than complete the essay on October 17th, right? So we might say, we might come up with a way for them to complete a draft a little bit prior to that, and we would talk about when it would make sense, and we might put that on the calendar as well, right? We also, when we meet with students, will work on a weekly planner. So the weekly planner is designed more to create a weekly framework that the students can utilize every single week. So when we sit down with students, I think my next slide is on this, we will kind of go through systematically. We'll fill in all the times that they have class and other obligations that are repeated each week. Maybe they have a work shift that they need to do. Maybe they have an athletics practice or a club meeting or something like that, right? We will make sure that we think about what are the times that you are going to be eating meals, that you might exercise if that's something that you do regularly, that you need to set aside for downtime, when are you going to try to go to sleep each night. And then we will look at how are we going to allocate potentially 6 to 10 hours a week to each class outside of class time. That could be for homework, that could be for working on essays that you have for that class, it could be reviewing notes or studying, it could be going to a TA session for a class. But where are going to be the times that are going to make sense for you to do those different things? Um, we're going to try to work with students and emphasize to them doing classwork in daylight hours. One of the things that we often advocate with students is that um, they should be treating their college time as if it's a job, right? And so they wake up in the morning, that's when their kind of work day starts, right? And their work day might end around 4 or 5 p.m. right before they go to dinner. So we want to maximize their productivity during that time, rather than I wake up, I eat breakfast, I go to class, I hang out or I take a nap, I go to class, I don't really do much in terms of my classes. I go to dinner and then I try to fit in all the things that I need to do starting at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., but then maybe don't end until 1 or 2 p.m., right? So again, as I was talking about in high school, they have this really structured schedule. And one of the things we're going to try to do with this tool, the weekly planner with students, is create a structure for them that won't look the same as it does in high school, but hopefully will, like I said, provide a framework that they can kind of repeat each week. It's adaptable. So generally when we do this with students, like I said, we'll reach out a few weeks later and ask if they'd like to come in and we'll talk about what are the things that worked well with it, what are the things that didn't work well, what kinds of adjustments could we make, so that for future weeks it works a little bit better, in terms of are you getting everything done on time? Are you getting adequate sleep? Are you feeling um, like you're prepared to go to class and prepared for your tests and things like that? Um, the semester calendar, like I said, we would do more of what you'll work on when, as far as longer term assignments rather than the stuff that happens every single week. Um, both of these are things that we regularly utilize with first year students specifically, though also with lots of other students, um, just because it takes some time to transition to what the college schedule is like. And these tools can really help make that explicit for students, how they can make that transition work for them and their unique circumstances, right? We also have tools like, for example, a grade tracker. Um, Often we get the question from students and sometimes from family, how will I know how I'm doing in a class? The short answer is it depends, right? It depends on the way the class is structured. It depends on what tools your professor already uses to communicate um, what you're, how you're doing in a given class. Sometimes professors will use Moodle really exhaustively, and they'll put grades in there really frequently. And sometimes they won't. But what I tell to students is, and I used to teach high school and middle school myself, is they should not expect what um, I was accustomed to when I was a high school and middle school teacher, which is a grading platform that you can go on to at any moment and see what your current grade is, right? With updated assignments listed in an itemized way. That should not and would not be an expectation here. So this tool, the grade tracker, is a way for students to um, give a give themselves the best snapshot they can of what their grade is at any given time. And so we have it set up so that they can use this in their syllabus and plug in their different graded aspects of a course, as well as the weight that their professor is giving them. And then usually they would estimate what their current grade is. And I say usually they would estimate because some aspects of a grade, like participation, may not be something that they are receiving a regular score for. It would just be something that would be factored in at the end of the semester, right? But for things that they do receive feedback or points or grades on, this can give an indication of where that would leave them at any given time, right? There are a number of tools that we also let students know about that are just available to everyone. Primarily those tools found in Microsoft 365, Office 365. The two that we often highlight for students are the Outlook calendar. So in other words, the calendar that's built into their Dickinson email address, and a tool called Planner. Planner is basically a way to make a pretty robust electronic checklist and to-do list. So for students who might like to have things in a checklist format, um, Planner is something that we might work on with them because it enables them to not only make a to-do list, but to categorize the to-do list by class, to assign due dates so that it's also chronological. You can set things up in here so that they repeat. You can also set things up so that they link to documents. And so if one of your to-do items is to work on an essay, you can put the link to your Microsoft Word document where you're writing your essay. And so you can go to your checklist and not only see that, oh, okay, I have this essay to work on, but your essay is right there in the checklist, right? We use this, for example, in our office to keep track of the many things we need to do at different points of the calendar year, which vary. Some things we only do one time a year. We might do at the end of the summer, right? And so we have that in our planner clearly laid out. Here are the steps we need to take to complete this. Here's the link to whatever file or resource it is we need to complete this task. And then we're able to kind of assign it to different people and make it work like that. Outlook calendar just works like any other kind of digital calendar, like your Google Calendar or your calendar on your iPhone, and that you can put events in there. In this example, you can see events are color coded by class. Um, and the nice thing about putting things in your Outlook calendar is you can set it so that it sends you reminders, right? And so I have my calendar to, by default, remind me 15 minutes before anything occurs. Most of my calendar items are meetings that I need to attend to or conversations I need to have. So I've set it up so that it always reminds me 15 minutes before that, so that if I have forgotten about something, 15 minutes is usually enough time for me to stop whatever it is that I'm doing and either get in front of my phone so that I can make that phone call, to pull up that document and review it so that I'm ready to talk about it, to make sure that I get myself from the coffee shop back in front of my computer so that I can have a Zoom meeting in time, right? So often what I try to strategize with students is starting is what is their end goal, right? Do they need to keep track of what it is they need to do? Do they need to be reminded about what they need to do? Do they need to just kind of lay things out in a schedule day by day, and they'll probably be able to follow that on their own? And then we'll try to figure out what is the tool that's going to best suit their needs, right? Um, if you go to Office 365, sorry, if you go to the Dickinson website and you search for Office 365, you'll see a page that has some trainings and setup guides about the different tools that are offered through Microsoft. If it kind of was formerly called Office 365, if your student goes to the Dickinson Gateway, you can access it there, and it's called M365, Microsoft 365. And when you click on that, it pulls up kind of the Microsoft like landing page for a student, which right now defaults to what's called Copilot, which is the AI tool for Microsoft. But everyone at Dickinson with a Dickinson email address has access to a whole host of Microsoft apps. So Outlook and Planner are two of those apps. Your apps like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, those are also included, but there's a whole bunch of other things that are just like kind of included in one's Dickinson account um, that can be useful. So I encourage students to get familiar with that, especially Outlook. They will really need to utilize their email. Well, I was going to say starting on day one, but really already, right? They're already getting messages to their Dickinson email. So it's really important to become familiar, if they're not already, with just what is Outlook? How does it work? Do I have it on my phone? Do I have it on my computer? How do I make use of it so I can make sure that I stay on top of all the information that's coming to me? Okay. Um, there are some other campus resources that we often refer students to or just make sure that they're aware of when we meet with them to have time management sessions. As far as academics go, there's peer tutoring, both through the advising office as well as through the writing center and the quantitative reasoning center, depending on the subject matter. Professors' office hours are usually new to students in the sense of having the ability to sit down with your professor one-on-one and talk about how things are going in class or talk about a specific project or ask questions. Those are unique to each professor in terms of when they occur. And so they would be found in that professor's syllabus as far as location, time, and how do you go about doing it? Do you email them? Do they have a specific scheduling link, or would they just like you to show up, right? Um, Technology services or user services, that's where students would go if they have issues, let's say logging into their Dickinson email, or if they're having issues printing, they would want to check in with user services. And that is located in the Widener Spar library, the library on campus, which is itself its own resource, right? We'll often refer students there when they're working on research projects because there are research librarians who can help identify specific resources, specific journals, and specific maybe areas of inquiry that can help them along in that process. There are other non-academic resources, campus activities being one of them, and there is going to be an activities fair. It's usually you would know better than me, Megan, but it's usually the first weekend, the Sunday after like the first week of class. Um, and that's when students would be able to peruse not all, but most of the different student clubs and organizations and sign up to get emails about when their meetings are and see what would be of interest to them. The Wellness Center on campus next to the Klein Fitness Center has two aspects to it. It has health services and it has counseling and psychological services. And so students would go there for their kind of routine. It's kind of like the student's primary care provider when they're on campus, right? So any type of routine health questions, they would go there first. If they're a student who would be interested in potentially seeking counseling services or therapy on campus, that's where they would go. And then the Wellness Center would kind of refer them to other locations if the kind of care that they need is more specialized or more involved, right? The care team is something that is helpful for parents to know about. I serve on the care team. The objective of the care team is to be made aware of and provide potentially interventions to students who are, for lack of a better word, at some level of risk. That could be academic risk, it could be mental health, it could be health. Um, Students who have some type of barrier that's going to impact their time here, and they would be referred to the care team, sometimes by themselves, sometimes by faculty, sometimes by friends, sometimes by family members. And there's a care team coordinator who would meet with the student and try to identify with them both what's going on, but also what are some resources on campus that they might need to make use of. So going all the way back to the beginning of the presentation, if a student were to contact the care team because they have an upcoming surgery and they're not going to be able to walk for 2 weeks, usually the care team coordinator would let me know and say, hey, have you met with this student? They're going to need some temporary supports for the 2 weeks where they're recovering. And then we would take it from there, right? Um, it's something for you to be aware of. If you went to the Dickinson website and searched care team, you would find more information about the care team, as well as the link where you could make a referral um, if something arises during the course of the semester where you would like someone to be able to check in um, on your child and maybe be able to provide them some more targeted supports. Um, that's where you would go for that. Okay, so kind of in conclusion, I would recommend you look at the resources that are at dickinson.edu/SOAR. Students, I mean, you're going to hear this a lot of times from a lot of different people, but it is just like crucial that they utilize all the different campus resources. I think that the biggest barrier to that for incoming students, especially, is that they're given so much information at one time. It can be really hard to keep track of things, and it can be really hard to remember what are those resources that are available to me when November rolls around and they actually need to make use of something, right? So I always say the first step to utilizing your resources is just to ask us, what are they, right? And so even though um, a student might be made very aware of the wellness center, they might not really even remember where it is or how to go about going there in November. And so I would say, ask us, even if it's a student who knows our office, we don't work in the wellness center, but we know where it is. We know what their number is. We can make that connection for them, right? Um, it's really important that students kind of think about and choose a time management tool that might work for them. That can be a hard copy planner, it can be Outlook, it could be some other app. I always tell students that tools are neutral, right? Um, a hammer is no better than a screwdriver, all like in general, but a hammer is much better at certain things than a screwdriver, and a screwdriver is much better than a hammer at certain things. And so it's really important to think of, what do I actually need out of a tool? Okay, what tool would work best for me? No one cares if you use a hard copy planner or a planner that's digital, right? It just depends on what's going to be most useful and productive for you. Um, I am a big advocate when I work with students of forging a time management plan or strategy at the beginning of the semester, but then checking in and kind of revising it as you go. So starting with some framework, whether that be our semester calendar and weekly planner or something else, but then taking some time to practice it and then assess, is this working for me? Or usually it's more accurate to say, in what ways is it working for me? And in what ways is it not working for me, right? Um, for those students who are interested in seeking that one-on-one help, the best thing to do is just to email us, soar@dickinson.edu. We can schedule meetings during starting the first week of class and anytime thereafter. So usually students will meet with us during the first couple weeks of the semester if they're interested in developing a time management strategy. Um, then we see kind of another wave of students around the middle of the semester who are um, more interested in trying to figure out, how can I get everything done that I need to get done, because stuff's starting to pile up. I'm starting to have assignments due, I have midterms, etc. And we'll work with them more on how do we prioritize and strategize things. Um, and then we see another wave of students, maybe 3 to 4 weeks out from the end of the semester, who are trying to think of, how do I finish the semester, right? I have some projects, I have some papers, I have finals coming up. Um, I need to kind of make sure that I get organized to cross the finish line, right? And then in the spring semester, we see another wave of students at the beginning who say, um, I got by in the fall, or maybe I didn't get by so well, and I really want to kind of turn the page and develop some strategies that would be useful. So the answer to when can a student what's the best time to make an appointment? Really, anytime. It depends on what the need is, but we will meet with students about a variety of topics. For first year students, often but not always, the best time is right at the beginning of the semester so that we can talk through what are the things that are not making sense to them about the kind of college schedule and structure and try to support with that. but that's not the only time that a student might need or want to seek support. So we'll have time for some questions. Happy to answer any other questions that come up in addition to the ones that were in the chat. But as we do so, I'll just leave this slide up here, which it has our website as well as our email address, which would be the best two places to follow up with any kind of like questions or for our website in particular, anytime that you're seeking information. So yeah, I'll leave it there and see what kind of questions we have.
Thank you, John. That was amazing.
And it looks like we only have a couple of attendees. So if there's no questions, that's totally fine. We're happy to kind of, like I said, have students or families reach out to us one-on-one and answer questions. But for those watching the recording, your first go-to would be the website. See what kind of answers you can find there. But if you have additional questions, our email address, or if it's the case that you want to let your child know, hey, here's the people that you would want to go to talk about how to manage your time, make sure that they know this email address too, and they can email us. Like I said, when they get to campus, before then, they won't have their syllabi. So it's really, really hard to make a plan without knowing, number one, what classes do you have? But more importantly, what are those classes like? What assignments do they have, right? So we really can't do much of anything until the first week, but we're happy to support them right away.
Okay, if nobody has any further questions, I think we are good to end the session here. Thank you so much to everyone who joined, and I hope this answered some questions for you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great summer, and yeah, we'll see you on campus soon.